Welcome back, everyone. Pal Weather here. Hope everyone is having a safe and happy holidays and spending time with the family and staying warm because it's definitely been cold. But we're going to have a big transition this week as a parade of storms coming in out west. And we could be looking at some severe storms as we head towards the New Year's going into the first week of January, along with some snow as well. So let's take a look at the overall temperature anomalies just in the last 2 weeks. If you take you back and remember, we started off December on the warmer side, but we made that transition back on the 13th of the month, predominantly for a good part of the US, and we've seen those colder anomalies just in the last 2 weeks. So it's been very cold up there in our northern states, but even further down to the south and all those areas into green, 5 to 8 degrees on average just in the last 2 weeks below average temperatures. And it's still cold this morning. In fact, a good part of the country is still hitting the freezing mark this morning, all the way down into the deep south along the east coast there, and even portions out west. So a good chunk of the country is still seeing those freezing conditions. But like I mentioned, big changes are going to be on the way. So I appreciate all my followers out there and all the new followers. In fact, 2,700 of you just added yesterday. I would love to reach 150,000 subscribers by the end of the year. If you are new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. You get all my daily content and detailed weather breakdowns. So let's get right to it and take a look at the setup this morning, because we've got those rain showers entering the west coast. So the areas into portions of Seattle seeing some more rain. In fact, they just went under a high wind warning out there. Now that transition to heavier rains have moved in portions of Northern California, but we've still got winter weather advisories and really winter storm warnings for the Sierra Nevadas and the Intermountain West. We're expecting a lot of heavy snow for your ski lovers. No question. But if we take a look at the overall big picture and look at the satellite view, we can see the Arctic air. There's that cold front. Now it's safely out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and the cold air is going to be retreating. Santa came to town. It's taken the cold air with them back to the North Pole. But out west, it's all about this steady stream of moisture with the atmospheric river, the Pineapple Express, the wall of water. That wall of water extends all the way out in the Pacific. That train of water, and it doesn't really have a caboose with it because there's no end in sight, guys, as we're going to be seeing relentless storms day after day heading off the west coast, taking a dent in the drought because they desperately need it. But they do have some flash flood watches, especially along the coast here. So I am expecting a lot of rain coming in out west. So let's really break this thing down for you, because as the cold air moves out in the Atlantic and retreats back to the North Pole, it's clear. It's high and dry out for a good part of the central and eastern 2/3. We're still dealing with that heavier snows. It's still snowing in Buffalo, guys. They can't stop this thing. And they've had a devastating blizzard with feet of snow. So, but you got one more day, and I think things do seem to calm down. But yeah, out west, there's the trend with the first initial system hitting the west coast this afternoon, with the heavier rains entering Washington and Oregon, Northern California. That eventually creeps down into central and even Southern California later on in the day. It's all about the heavier snows are going to take place into the Intermountain West. And there's the transition with that warm front moving in from the central US off into the east. And you can definitely see the transition as we go into tomorrow on your Wednesday, with this warm front lifting into Texas. So Texas starts to warm up. That just shifts the winds around from the south. That lifts it northeast. So as this warm front continues to creep further north, that's going to bring those warmer conditions along with it. So that first initial system will move out of California and head into the desert Southwest. Now we're talking places into Phoenix, into the desert Southwest, getting some of those moderate to heavier rains at times. And then the heavier snows will really start to light up. And of course, portions of Utah into the western slopes of Colorado, back into Nevada here, into Wyoming, and all the way up into Idaho and Montana. That's on the day on Wednesday. But there's your snowpack. So here's the overall snowpack of what's on the ground right now. So as that warm front lifts back up from Texas that's going to melt these snows up here through the Ohio Valley, and eventually is going to be melting these snows, even the lake effect snows, the feet of snows getting into Buffalo. So flooding is going to be a big concern with just initial snow melt, and with that warm front lifting those temperatures, we've got some rain associated with it. So it's going to be a compounding effect. That flooding could be a huge concern deeper into the week. So here's the setup by Thursday. So as that warm front continues to retreat further to the northeast, back down to the south, that's going to be increasing the dew points, increases the moisture supply. It has the south wind associated with it, pulls in that Gulf moisture. So we could be talking about stronger storms on your day on Thursday, and portions of the Houston Metroplex getting into Louisiana and Arkansas. As that warm air rises and as the cold air continues to pummel in from the northwest, we're going to see that transition. So it starts to fall as snow, but then it freezes on contact, and then you got a warm air aloft. That's the transition to some ice is going to be a concern going into Thursday into portions of eastern Nebraska, going into Iowa, into Minnesota. But it's all about the heavier rains as that parade of storms continue with another system coming in off the west coast. So it just gets lit up again along the west coast with some more light to moderate, even heavier rains at time, and you're going to be adding to those snow totals up there into the Intermountain West. So as we transition to Friday, again, that steady stream, that Pineapple Express, the atmospheric river just continues with this active jet stream, but this time it's going to take a little bit more of a dip. And as it dips all the way down into Mexico, it's going to pull in more of that Gulf moisture as well. So as the winds turn around, we're going to have a little bit more instability to work with now. So yeah, you could be even looking at some stronger storms as you head into your Friday timeframe, as the warm front continues to retreat further north. That elevates the temperatures a little bit higher, and so we're going to be looking at definitely some warmer conditions, especially as we transition to Thursday and Friday timeframe. But it's all about the storms as you head southbound, with a marginal risk in place in the day on Friday along the east of the I-35 corridor, getting into this will be actually on the day on Thursday, but then it transitions to more storms on Friday. So we're looking at a several day event, because by the time we do get into Friday, those storms are still really kind of in the same place as they move just a little bit further off into the east, now more or less impacting Louisiana, heading into Arkansas. This will eventually creep into the Ohio Valley up here, but you can see where the cold air is. It retreats back to the North Pole with that red line extending further north. So that's your freezing line. So yeah, that's it. That's in your afternoon time frame on your Friday. So that's why we're talking about just all storms by then, and not snow, because any snow that's going to be out is going to be out west, out into the Intermountain West, as we got, yes, another system coming off the west coast with more heavier rains for Northern California, getting into Central California on Friday. And that just continues on Saturday. So as we transition into your New Year's Eve, these storms could get a little bit more bumpy. We've got, these warmer waters down here in the Gulf of Mexico. You've got those warmer conditions that you've had several days to tap into. Now you've got a little bit more water vapor associated with that, and those could be definitely on the stronger side. Yes, look at that west. It's going to be a broken record this week with yet another system coming in off the west coast, but definitely a concern going into your New Year's Eve. So you could be looking at some fireworks in the form of some stronger to severe storms down here into Louisiana, into the Mississippi area, down into Alabama, getting into Georgia, the Florida Panhandle. They could creep as far north as portions of Tennessee. But I'm looking at the dew points. The dew points really stop about 55 up here in this sector, but really elevate going to the 60s, if not in the 70s. Low 70s, that's definitely pretty high. I don't need to tell you, that's really high for this time of year. And that's why we have severe storms on the table and a lot of warmer conditions. So these are the actual high temperatures for your New Year's Eve. So it's a quick transition to definitely a warmer setup as we get deeper into the week. And as we get into your Saturday time frame, we could be looking at widespread 70s across the deep south, and those 70s transferred to 60s, and even in the 50s. That's definitely well above average for this time of year, even extending into the Northeast, into the mid-Atlantic. It's plenty warm conditions, even out west with all the rains kicking in. You're talking, 58, 60 degrees for high temperatures out there. So, but as we transfer into Monday, so that's where things get even more interesting as a little bit more stronger system. Again, we have a yet relentless amount of moisture coming in off the west coast. We have another trough that's going to be diving into the midsection of the country. We've been warm for several days by then, so it's going to be able to tap into this energy. But this mechanism got a pretty definite low pressure associated with it. And on the south side, you're going to have to be definitely concerned about even stronger storms as you go into your Monday time frame. You can actually see where the low is going to be setting up on your Monday across Kansas there to the southern flank. Look at that knot on the 500 jet stream. These are the winds about 17,000 feet up in the atmosphere. They're cranking at 95 knots. That's over 100 miles an hour, guys. That's going to be a concern. That's going to have a lot more lift associated with it. And this actually even tries to go negatively tilted. That's always an indication you could be looking at even stronger storms, especially when you zoom in on the 850s with that eye actually forming out there into Kansas. That's always an indication. So you have the deformation zone right on the northwest flank. So that's going to be bringing in that colder air, and then training with those heavier snows. Going to be on the northwest side of that low pressure to the south of there with that lift mechanism in place. Definitely even could be looking at stronger storms as we head into your Monday timeframe. In fact, the latest Colorado State University setup has this storm system with the eye essentially set up a little bit further west. I think that brings the storms, the initiation, starting a little bit further west. So now I'm probably concerned about storms setting up across the Oklahoma City area, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then they propagate eastbound. So they get even elevated as they hit further off into East Texas, into Louisiana, into Arkansas. And this is even going to be a bigger setup. So the expansion of the severe storms are going to be a little bit further off into the Northeast. Now that's going to encompass portions of Missouri, back into Illinois by then, even southern portions of Indiana and western parts of Tennessee and Kentucky there. And then going into the day on Tuesday, that just shifts off a little bit further east. So now we're going to be looking at some stronger storms where you set up on New Year's Eve coming back in the same places on your Tuesday time frame, but those are going to be lifting further off, a little bit further northeast. It's going to be tapping into those warmer conditions a little bit further off to the north by then, because you can see the heat elements are going to be associated with it as we get deeper into December, going into the first week of January. So this is the latest update from the Climate Prediction Center with those elevated temperatures, well above average temperatures. And then out west, it's just more or less normal. Well, normal in the first week of January is cold, guys. It's cold out west. So you're going to have that sharp temperature gradient. And whenever you see a map like this, that spells trouble for severe storms for sure, because that's not normal in the month of January, right? So, but here's the breakdown. So here's the setup for Monday. So we're going to be concerned about stronger storms, the initiation starting into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, possibly Oklahoma City, and then shifting eastbound to the northwest flank of there. There's your red line. That's your freezing line. So that's where we're going to be. The heavier snows are going to be starting to set up in portions of eastern Colorado by then, going into Denver, going into northwestern portions of Kansas there, especially getting into Nebraska for sure. You're going to have some icy concerns just in the southern flank of that, but all snow heading up into portions of Iowa there on the northwest side of Iowa. And then that just continues to live northbound, bringing the snow with it into portions of Minnesota, getting on the northwest flank of Wisconsin there, into the upper peninsula. There's your freezing line. So it starts to creep into Texas back again, but it stops there because that's the warm sector on the east side of there. And we're going to be looking at some stronger storms on the southern flank of these storms as we head into your Tuesday timeframe, with more rain hit it off the west coast, and that just continues on to Wednesday. So again, we've got another setup with another storm system out west. So it's going to just be relentless all week long, as some of that rain that transfers from your Monday and Tuesday time frame will be on the much weaker side by the time it gets up into the northeast, going into your Wednesday time frame. But it's going to be a windy week for sure, with those relentless storms coming in out west. If you're a truck driver, if you're a person that drives around a lot across the U.S., definitely be on high concern, especially as you get into the western areas of the U.S., because the winds are going to be elevated with the all the relentless amount of systems that are going to be coming in off the west coast, especially the further west you go into California, into Oregon, and to Washington. Those storms are going to be on the definitely the windy side. That's why they even have high wind warnings right now. But there's the rain, so we're going to have these setups that are going to be coming across out west with the parade of storms. We're talking inches of rainfall, if not even some areas could be looking at double-digit rainfalls. Is definitely not out of the question. But look at all the precipitation over the Sierra Mountains, guys. That you're talking a lot of precipitation, and all that's going to be falling in the form of snow out there. But even into the desert Southwest, I mean, all those areas in red, you're talking 3 to 4 inches. And in the portions of Arizona, getting into Utah, into portions of Colorado there. But there's this setup with all these initial systems that are going to be coming in across this sector. These areas in red of all the heavier rains are going to be moving in, but then lighter amounts as you head up through the mid-Atlantic into the northeast. So there's your snow. So here's the latest European. Again, we're going to have that snow melt out here, and as this lifts up, all this snow is going to be gone, and the warm sector is going to be draped across the central and eastern 2/3, while we're going to have those other systems come in, especially in the northwest side of there. So it could get pretty nasty in the form of snow. But yeah, look at that. I mean, look at the European maxing out 123 inches for the Sierra Nevadas, guys. That tells you there's a lot of snow coming in for those mountains up there in the Intermountain West. So man, there's going to be plenty of snow for your ski lovers. But this portions across portions of eastern portions of Colorado, going into Nebraska there, heading into Iowa, into Minnesota, that could be looking at definitely some heavier totals. So even right now, even on the blend, we're still looking at some higher totals, especially as you get into Nebraska and heading into portions of South Dakota into Minnesota. But then all the heavier snows will be draped across the Intermountain West. So I appreciate you guys following. Do follow me on Twitter and Instagram, as well as Facebook, because I update on those as well. So I appreciate you listening and following, and catching the next update where I protect you before and after the storm.